Hi everyone. In this video I'm going to be showing you how dimensions work. We're going to be following what's called geometric dimensioning and tolerancing. But it's basically the same rules that have been applied to dimensioning since the beginning of the idea of dimensioning. And if you understand two basic rules, the first one is position and the second one is geometry, you'll have pretty much covered all of dimensioning, although it can get quite involved. So I've drawn a block of wood. I'm going to go perspective view. So that's my block of wood. And I'm going to assume that we are in the workshop and you want to chop this block of wood to size. You want to cut it to size. So if I measure, let's just go here. Right, if I measure what I have here from on the left hand side, so the width or the depth is 68.5, and if I do that again, I've got something about 396. So let's say I want to cut it down to 65 by 390. How would I go about this in real life? Well, I would, first of all, I'd decide where I was going to measure from. So obviously, here I'm going to have to make a decision, which in this case I'm going to use the bottom face. That's this face here. Let's just escape that, and so I'm going to use that face, right? And I'm going to use the left-hand face as my starting points. So I'm going to draw a line just along the bottom, and this is just because it's easier to show you how this works. So you would obviously draw a line. You would measure from this on this top face. You would measure from that corner 65 millimeters. So I'm going to just move this up 65. So there's a line. I've drawn a line, and then let's draw another line. I'm going to just base it on this, and I'm going to move this one 390. Right, so I've drawn my two lines, and then what I do is once I've got them drawn, I put this on a tabletop with a table saw or through whatever machine you want to use, and then we just chop it off. So we trim that bit. Oops, let's try that again. And there we go. We've got something which is exactly the size we want it to be. So it gets a little bit more complicated now because now we want to put some holes in this item. So let's give this a radius of, say, 6 or so, maybe a bit bigger, 8, 9, 10, just so that it's visible. And we want to put 2 holes in here because we want to fix this to the wall. And we want it to be centered around this object. So the previous 2 cuts included position and size in the same measurement, okay? But in this one, the position of this piece has to be determined independent of the size, because the size is 10 millimeters in diameter, but the position has to be set from a particular point. And in fact 2 points. So we need a set of ordinates or coordinates. So I'm going to assume that we're going to measure from the middle, right? So I'm going to go middle down like this, and that's going to be my measuring point. So I would measure this thing, this block of wood, and it would be 390, and I'd divide that by 2 to get 195. And then let's say I want this piece here to be a certain distance from there. So I would then measure, let's just get that to link to this. So I would draw a line across, and then I would draw perhaps another center line. So one going all the way across like that. And then I would locate my point. Obviously it wouldn't be a circle, it would just be a point. So let's put a point in here. I'm going to locate that point at this junction here. just to say that this is like indicating that if you were using a ruler, you would say, well, let's go minus 140 from here, and that would be the point. And then I'd use that point to actually cut or to drill a hole, 10 millimeter hole. And I would have to do exactly the same on the other side. I would then measure, let's just mirror this from here to there. Okay, so essentially what I would do is I would use that center line, get the center point, which would be a point that you'd actually mark. And then I would use my ruler with maybe a set square, just to measure that, what that is. That's 140. And I'd mark another point. Okay, and then I would be able to drill another hole. So I know now that these two holes are centered around that center line, and that they're centered around the edges of the block of wood. So what I've done there is I've created the position as being 140 from the center and 140 from the center, and the size would be 10 millimeters. So that one there we go, diameter 10. All right, so that's the basics of it. It's position and size. If you've got the position and you have the size, then you have a proper dimension. You have to have those two items. But sometimes position and size are the same thing. So the width of this block of wood is both the position and the size, as is the height, as is the length. So let's go across to Solidworks to see how that works in that program.